So far, everybody's been working on your report, and hopefully you got through the formatting issues and you were able to figure out how to use your computer program or whatever it was, and you got going in that direction. So, and that was the goal, to get that far. Now, what we're going to work on today is step number 2. So, if you go to this section in your notes, right here, it was in the back of mine where it says step 2. That's where we're going to be to start with, to get an overview. This is our example psalm, Psalm 54. We'll get to Psalm 70 in a minute. So let's take a look at Psalm 54. You'll notice the previous page where it says step 1, there we just have a bunch of text. We've aligned it in the mechanical outline. Step 2, what's the difference? You see there's some horizontal lines, and dividing this into 3 subsections. Why do we have that? So the reason for that is because we have a major portion and a minor portion. So the major portion all goes together on a big idea. The big idea comes in much later in these steps. But the minor portion means within this passage that we're working on, in this case, for Psalm 54, the major portion is the whole psalm. The minor portion are these individual sections. So verses 1 through 3, that's a minor portion. Verse 4 and 5 is a minor portion, and verses 6 and 7 is a minor portion as well. So the purpose of that is to understand what's happening in the passage. In the same way, if you're doing an outline on the board, for example, and let's say you're drawing an outline here. Each one of these Roman numerals here is going to equate to each one of these sections. So if I'm outlining this and not even having a chart, I would have 3 Roman numerals, and then any of the detailed information would be letter A, letter B, or I would actually put verses 1 through 3, for example. So whether we chart it this exact way or not, these divisions are still here. So as you're going along, this is going to be important, because if you remember, you've got some things that are aligned all the way over here in the first position. So you have something like this, and then you're building off of there. But when you get to a new section, you're now at Roman numeral 2. So what happens? Now this next section is going to line up over here. And when you get to Roman numeral 3, same thing. It's going to get lined up over here. So this is going to be important from the outlining standpoint, that it's going to reshift, and now you're going to restart back over to here to that first position. So what are we actually trying to do? Let's take a look at Psalm 54 as it's an example for us. And remember, the point of what we're doing is we're looking for grammatical repetition. We're looking for emphasis and grammatical repetition, especially repetition of certain forms. So if we see a pattern of the same type of language, that's going to help us. So taking a look at this, we see, save me, O God, by thy name, and judge me. You have another imperative verb. So it's the same tense. We have a pattern going. Then it continues. And it's in the present tense. It's right now, oh God, judge me. The third one is hear, in verse 2. Hear my prayer, O God. So a present tense imperative. And then the end of verse 2, give ear to the words of my mouth. So this is a pretty easy one to see. Imperative verb, imperative verb, imperative verb, imperative present verb. So you have the same form is used consistently. And as far as the persons involved, is it one person talking about themselves? Is it one person, are they directing their attention toward God? Are they directing their attention What do we have here? The psalmist is conversing with whom?
God.
Okay, with God. Not very hard. With God. So the psalmist is saying to God, save me, direct me. Hey, God, I'm praying to you. Now, what happens when we get to verse 4? Behold, God is mine helper. The Lord is with them that uphold my soul. He shall reward evil unto mine enemies. Is the psalmist talking to God? Directly addressing to God? No, the answer is no. The psalmist is talking about God, but the psalmist is talking to whom?
The reader.
To the reader or the listener, whoever he's addressing. So, hey, you people out here, let me tell you about God. So, how do I know for sure that there is a shift where we have a new minor portion? Because there's a change in the grammatical form. There's a change in the tense. So it's still present tense, but instead of directly addressing God, we have a shift from the perspective. Still the speaker is still talking about himself. Well, he's still talking, but he's talking to other people. So it has to be a new section. But then, and it's in the present tense. Now notice what happens when we go to verse 6. I will freely sacrifice unto thee. I will praise thy name, O Lord, for it is good. For he hath delivered me out of all trouble, and mine eye hath seen his desire upon mine enemies. What is the shift that happened that you notice whereby I would have said, you know what, I'm in a new section. It needs to be a new minor portion. What's the grammatical change that took place?
Like I will, like talking about you do.
I will, and saying I will is showing that what has changed.
Well, he's gone back to addressing God.
Okay, he's going back to addressing God.
The subject being.
The subject has changed. He's now talking about himself. And there's a third aspect. So there's actually three changes that take place here. The verb tense. So what's happened? It's I will. He's saying in the future, I will do this. Now and going into the future, I will praise thy name. I will freely sacrifice. So whereas in verses 4 and 5, it's God is my helper. So verses 1 through 5 are all present tense. So because of all of these things, there's multiple shifts. This one's probably quite easy to see compared to some of the other ones. But there is a shift here, so we have a new minor portion. So this is important because if you can understand that, you can understand all the stuff in the box, verses 6 and 7, that all goes together. Verses 4 and 5, they go together. Verses 1 through 3, they go together. How do you know they go together? Because there's a similarity of grammatical form. So let's go much previous in your big set of notes that you got at the beginning of the year, page 58. And I'm sorry you don't have that notes on this part yet. But we just talked about a couple of aspects of this. Step number 2, divide passage into paragraph portions. Major scripture portions are most similar to chapters in size but contain only one primary subject or truth. 1 Corinthians 13 is shorter in length but is unified on the subject of charity. Hebrews 11 is longer, but it's unified on the subject of faith. So how do you know if it's a major portion? Because it all has one big idea. That's the key part to understand on a major portion. Most commonly, it's a little more like a chapter, but if you get into, for example, the Gospels, right now I'm preaching through the book of Mark, and there's a lot of stuff in one chapter. So the major portion, there's like 2 or 3, sometimes 4 major portions in a single chapter. Matthew and Luke are quite a bit like this. So it's not exactly a chapter, but it's something longer, but it'll all be unified with one big idea, which we'll talk about that at a later step. The other thing you can have, we talked about a shift in tense, in mood, and this sort of thing with a transition, but it can also be a change in subject. For example, Jesus is telling one parable, and then he switches and he goes and talks about another parable. That's probably a major portion switch. Not always. Just on Sunday night, I preached on 3 parables altogether. They had a common theme. And so I indicated on my analytical chart, all 3 of them were together because of the common theme. So that's a major portion. Minor portions are more, they're closer to paragraphs in length, so it could be just one verse. Generally, it's 4 to 8 verses, depending on what that is. For example, 1 Corinthians 13. Oh, it's all about charity? True, but you can see that there are different changes. In certain areas, it's describing certain things. The middle, it defines what charity is. And then there's grammatical changes that happen throughout 1 Corinthians 13. So there are smaller, minor portions in there. Let's see, talked about that. Keep in mind that since the book, paragraph, and the verse divisions are not inspired, you want to make sure you check the chapter before and after, and don't just assume it's got to be exactly the same. For example, somebody's doing Jonah. Jonah has a verse like that, where it's in one chapter, but it thematically goes with another chapter. The other thing that you can do is look for transition words that you often start a sentence. Transition words are wherefore, therefore, moreover, likewise, finally, sometimes, nevertheless. Hebrews 6:1, therefore, leaving the principles of the doctrine of Christ, let us go on unto perfection. So we have a transition. 2 Peter 1:10, wherefore the rather, brethren, give diligence to make your calling election sure. 2 Peter 1:12, wherefore. So we see multiple transition words. Philippians 4:8, finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, and so on. So we see a transition again right there. We took a look already at Psalm 54, and we looked at that in great detail. I mentioned this already. Oftentimes at the beginning of a book, you may have an introductory verse that is sort of explaining, like an introduction, and then it gets into the main part. So that would be its own section, because thematically that would be different. It's different than the rest of it. But just as a tip for right there. Let's take a look at Psalm 70. Psalm 70. Go ahead and find Psalm 70, and we're going to work on this together on the board. So let me erase this, and we're going to get into our analytical chart. Just erase the board here. Let's say this is our margin, and we're going to skip the introduction to the chief musician, a psalm of David to bring remembrance. We'll start right with the main text in verse 1. We have the phrase, make haste, O God. Then we have a phrase, to deliver me. So make haste, O God. I'll go first. And we're going to put that in tab spot number 1. So now just I'll do a little bit to get us started here. Make haste, O God, to deliver me. To is which part of speech? Showing that this is a phrase of some kind.
It's a preposition.
Okay, preposition. So we have a prepositional phrase. So it's going to go in spot number 2. To deliver me. And then, oh, it's actually a semicolon. And then we have, make haste to help me, O Lord. So here's the question that we have. Is make haste grammatically the same as make haste? Yes, same exact words, but it's the same part of speech. So that's going to go back here, showing that it lines up. And you'll notice some repetition here. Make haste, let me find the rest of the phrase, to help me. And why is it going to go in second spot? Because I'm going to ask the question, is it the same as this one? No. Is it the same as spot 2 grammatically? To deliver and to help. It's also preposition. I think that's, I got that right. Yes. And so we've got several things lined up. We have our vocative, you don't need to know that term for this, but direct address. Those are lined up. Our prepositional phrases are lined up. So you can see from here, we've got some really consistent grammatical things going on. So let's start on this end of the room. And yes, that's you. I see that hand. Come on up and you get to work on the second phrase. So this is going to be verse 1. I'll put this over here. Verse number 2, here's the marker. So you got to decide just one phrase. Let them be ashamed. And so you got to decide where is that going to go.
Like the third one?
Okay, before you get going too far on this, the verb here, make haste. The psalmist is directly addressing God, correct? Mm-hmm. And it's an imperative, as if he's commanding God, make haste, hurry and help me. What's our phrase here? Let them be ashamed. Is this also the same imperative directly addressed to God? Yes. So, is it going to be the same as this, even though they're different words? Yes, it is. Okay, correct. Nice job there. So, let them be ashamed. And then you're going to remember what to do with the and, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. Amazing. Great job. Okay, so we have the same part of speech here. Let them be ashamed. And this was, Katie, this is a rule from, they already learned before. You put the and at the end so it doesn't mess up the alignment at the beginning of the phrase. So we have an and, that means there's two of something. Next volunteer, come on down. Next phrase. Let's see. Oh, it's only one word long, confounded. And means you have two of something. You have the word confounded. So go ahead and line that up. Is that right? It is. Very good. Perfect. So we have let them be ashamed and confounded. So we're showing that both of those are lined up. Volunteer number 3, come on up. We have the phrase, that seek after my soul. So keep in mind you're working with checking, is it the same as this one? Is it the same with this one? If it is, line it up with those two. If it's not, it'll go in spot number 3. Perfect. Very good. So we've got this clause over here. And so that's going in spot number 3. Next volunteer. We have let them be turned backwards or backward. Let them be turned backward. So you got to ask the same question. Is it the same grammatically as spot 1 or spot 2, spot 3? If it is, line it up. If it's not, put it in spot 4. We have let them be turned backward. And so perfect, great job. So we see we've got 4 of these imperative phrases so far. And then we have an and right over here. So next, let's see. Yes, do you want to try the next one or you want to watch other people suffer? Okay, we'll watch see how other people do. So let them be turned backward and put to confusion. Put to confusion. Put to confusion. Perfect. So good job there. Put to confusion. We have one more phrase. Volunteer. Back to the beginning on our volunteers. That next phrase is that. We got another clause. So you have 2 choices of what you can do with this. That desire might hurt. That's the phrase. So, and here's the 2 choices. We already have the word that previous, starting a line. So you could say, because of that, I'm going to repeat it and put it here. The second thing is you could say, you know what, it's describing why should they be put to confusion, or who should be put to confusion? The ones that seek after my soul, or however the verse goes. You could put it here to show dependence, or you could put it here showing the repetition. So either one of those is good. That desire might hurt. Okay, great. So you guys are doing great on this. Let me put our number 2 over here, show the verse. Now we're coming up to verse number 3. Verse number 3, we're going to run out of room here. We have, let them be turned back. Okay, next volunteer. Let them be turned back. Where's this going to go to start verse number 3? And so again, you're going to ask yourself that question. Do we have more of these imperative verbs that are starting the verse? Are we going to have some more of those? Let them be turned back. And okay, so you're saying it lines up with these right here. Perfect. So we've got, you can see the pattern we've got. Make, let, and then we have another let over here. I'll put in our verse 3 verse number. And next volunteer, next phrase. And we have a prepositional phrase, for a reward. Why don't you do both of them for a reward of their shame. You could put them both in the same line. There's two separate prepositional phrases. So you could, we're running out of room here. So you could line them up and make two lines out of them. For a reward of their shame. Okay, you got it. Great job. So we have for a reward, thank you, of their shame. And finishing out verse number 3, come on ahead, our next volunteer. We have a phrase that say, and then if you're quoting somebody, in this case, aha, it's kind of a weird phrase, but aha, you'd put that on on a separate line as a separate phrase.
Like underneath that?
So you're going to indent it either here or even a little further over. We'll just barely squeeze that in on. Okay, we're pretending that this continues up here and that this is the edge of the paper. So, next volunteer. The fun continues. So now we're up to verse number 4. And you're going to add, even though we're on another line, you still have position 1, position 2, and so on, position 3. So the question is, where exactly does that go? Verse 4, let all those that seek thee rejoice. And. So you have it in spot number 1. That's correct? So you can notice we have a very significant repetition, grammatical form. Let them, let them, let them. So, yeah, that's right. Let all those. And then you have.
Okay, do I still write?
Well, it's a, you have the word that starts a clause. So why don't you hand the marker baton off to the next person? To the next volunteer. That seek thee. So keep in mind that all this is supposed to be above what's here. So do you have anything grammatically similar to this? Is it the same as let all those as an imperative verb? That's correct. Well, then you have, no, that's good for right there. So then rejoice is the verb. So this is why this is helpful. We have let all those that seek thee. So this is modifying this. Which kind of people? The ones that seek thee, rejoice. So the simpler way to line this up to understand the grammar is let all those rejoice. So we can put rejoice over here. And this is verse number 4, so we'll put that over there. All right, next volunteer. Oh, we have and. I need to make sure I get this correct. Here we go. So, and, you should know right away, oh, there's two of something in there if you have an and. And be glad. So you're saying it's the same as this?
Yes.
Okay, we'll just squeeze this right over to there.
Right here.
And then, yes, then that's going to line up. And then we have another phrase in the, I'm just going to go ahead, it's a prepositional phrase because we're going to run out of space. I'm just going to put it over here just to help. Sometimes I'll, even though it's technically it's a separate phrase, it's just a little easier to do it that way. And let, let's see. So we have our and at the end. Next volunteer, starting with the word let. Be glad in thee, and let such as love thy salvation. Well, this is going to be a long one. Say continually. Let such as love thy salvation. Say continually. Okay, and then the last phrase for verse 5, hold up for just a second, I'll finish this one, then you could start verse 5. What do we have here? Let, the last phrase. Okay, great job. Yes, that's right there. Let God be magnified. So we have another let over here. Okay, so just a review before we get to verse 5, what do we have? We have imperative verb, and then we have the exact same imperative verb, let them, let them, let them, let all those, let such, let God. So you can't get a more consistent pattern than all that. Now we come to verse 5. Next volunteer, this is the hardest point in the psalm. See if you can figure out what to do next.
This is like a separate thing, right? Because it changes.
Okay, why do you think it's a separate thing and why do you think it changes? That's the whole point of why we're doing this. So great job in understanding this.
Because it goes from the verb and then it goes to that person specifically, but I am instead of talking to God, it's about themselves.
Correct. So we have somebody talking to God about all these other people. Hey, God, let this happen, let this happen, let this happen. We have a change in perspective. So what that means is you're going to draw a line, and you're going to start, this would be Roman numeral 2, basically, or the second section in this. And you can know for sure, hey, I know for sure this is a new section, because it switches. Now it says, but I am poor and needy. Then it does switch back momentarily. Make haste unto me, O God, thou art my deliverer. But now it's the person's talking from their perspective. So I am poor and back to volunteer number 1. So needy is the next word. Oh, you only need to do one word here. So where is it going to go? Correct.
I can't spell. That, okay.
And that's it. Okay, volunteer number 2. So great job. But I am poor and needy. Make haste is the next phrase. Make haste unto me, O God. So then you're going to ask the same series of questions. Is it the same as this? If it's not, then you go to spot 2, or you check with other things. And then this is very important. Once you move into a new paragraph section, it doesn't matter what all these other phrases are, because you're in a new section. So even if there's a phrase that's identical, it's not. It's going to be a new section. So the alignment changes because you're in Roman numeral 2. So we have make haste, and then unto me, prepositional phrase, we'll put that right there. That's perfect, just like that. And then we have, O God. I'll put this one in here, direct address. And so we've got this. We're up to verse 5. I'll add that over here. Next volunteer. Thou art my help and okay. And why did you put it here?
Because it's talking about God.
Okay, so you're going to put it here because it's thou, it's renaming. Yes, so you got a preposition, you're renaming, or a pronoun renaming. So good. And even if it wasn't, it's the next spot. So either way, that's the right answer. Next volunteer. Thou art my help and my deliverer is the next part. Correct. Nice. My deliverer, line that up. And why don't you finish the whole chapter off here? So there's technically 2 phrases, O Lord, and then make no tarrying. Nice, because we have, as far as a tense, we don't really call it this in English, but in Greek it's what's called the vocative. It's direct address. O God, or if you're familiar with the poem, O Captain, my Captain, it's a formal direct address. Nice, and then another imperative verb. So we see lots of repetition here. Outstanding work, everybody. Great job in understanding that. So we see 2 sections in here. We see 2 sections in here. This is all one section, and then verses 1 through 4. And you say, well, maybe it should be more balanced. Maybe this should be 3. No, there can't be 3 because we have these 2 different patterns. So it should be 2 different sections. So we have 2 portions in here. And because grammatically you can tell that because of the shift in the change that takes place. I think, let's see, we only have 7 minutes left. I think we'll go ahead and I'll explain a couple of the other steps and we'll go through it a little bit. We can work on it a little more later. So when you have that shift in the tense, shift in perspective, shift in address, then you know, oh, I'm in another section. So the pattern changes. Here we have a very clear and consistent pattern. It also could be a shift in subject, where it's a completely new subject. Jesus starts a new parable. That's a new major section. Page 63 is sidebar studies. I'll go over that very fast. You're going to do definitions. You can see the example there. You can use colors to show the different definitions so people can link between the text And the margin, you can see that in your example, Psalm, I think it's 51 or whatever. You can see the example of that. Any additional notes, cultural things that you find helpful, cross-references, all those will go in the sidebar study. That's going to take a little while too, depending on how many of those you have. Now, step 4, and we'll go over step 5 very briefly. Step 4 is paragraph summaries. Let's go back to our example that I gave you, the one that's in color. It says step 4, determine what each group is about. So in step 3, you can see the colors are added, and that gets us with the definitions. You can quickly make the little side references to see what the meaning is. You can see patterns in things or commonly repeated words. So now we're on step 4, determine what each group is about. Write it in the left-hand column. So using our example of Psalm 54, we see the pattern: save me, judge me, hear my prayer, give ear. That's the simplified version of this. Here, somebody's saying, God, would you come alongside and partner with me? They're asking for God's intervention. So you're trying to look at all of the verses 1 through 3, and you're trying to summarize them. What does this mean? What are all these things? Now, if you remember before, I would say as you're going through and working with the grammar, don't think too much about purpose and meaning, the significance of all that. First, you need to just think about what the grammar's doing, which is studying. You're doing the word definitions in the sidebar studies. Now is the step where now you start thinking, what is this about? And you're going to try to summarize all of this. So we gave the example there of Psalm 54. If we look at this one, make haste, O God. Here, basically, we could say God is praying, the psalmist is praying for God to bring judgment on the wicked. So I could maybe say this is a prayer, because it is. Oh, this is a prayer. Or it could be the request here is for God to bring judgment. Then you're going to come over here and you're going to try to summarize the second paragraph, the second section. But I am poor and needy, make haste. Here he's emphasizing his need. So maybe we could summarize it in that way. So this is a need, or he's showing his humility. I'm in need of this answer to prayer. Here he's asking, this is all his petitions or prayer requests. So that's how I would summarize those. If you look at our example of Psalm 54, the first paragraph, you see he's asking for God to help him. In verses 4 and 5, it's a little bit different. God is mine helper, the Lord is with them that uphold my soul. He shall reward evil on my enemies. So he's saying God will protect me, God will make things right. So it would be something along those lines to summarize verses 4 and 5. Then if we looked at verses 6 and 7, you can see the psalmist, he changes the tone. I'm going to sacrifice and praise you, O Lord, because you will deliver me. So the idea of deliverance or protection is a summary. So what you do then is, and you may need to change these as you get going, but you're going to write your summary in the column over here. So let's say this is prayer requests. And let's say this is need. I'll put this over here. You may do one, and then you may change your mind later and say, you know what, that's not really what it's about. That's okay. But start by just looking at each of these paragraphs. You're going to summarize it. Okay, what's this whole thing about? Now, we're quickly going to introduce step number 5. And step 5 is the most critical. It doesn't take long per se, usually, but it's the most critical because this is where you really have to think through things. Step 5, determine what the whole passage is about or what it means. So now, if we're looking at this one, we're going to have to say, what's this whole thing about? This and this. All this together, what's the big idea? If you don't know what the big idea is, you probably don't completely understand it. So if you look at the example in the book in color, Psalm 54, make God your helper. That's what I'm saying is the main idea for Psalm 54. Is this all about God helping the psalmist? How do you know if that really is what it's about? What you do is you will check. Here's how you check. This is really important to understanding the passage. Big idea. Let's take a look. Yeah, let's look just at Psalm 54. What you do is you say, okay, partner, God's going to partner and help me. God's going to be my protector. God will be my preserver. You're going to check those paragraph summaries with the big idea. So here's the question. Can we make God our helper if he is partnering with us? Yeah, okay, partnering has to do with God helping. What about God protecting us? Is that making God our helper? The fact that God protects us? When you say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. God does he help us by preserving us, as in the psalmist not dying? Yes. So when you have the big idea up here and you check it against the paragraph summaries here, and everything fits, it's like the puzzle piece where all the puzzle pieces fit. You're not jamming anything in. You have to jam something in, you're going to have a few issues. So here's a potential of a few different issues. One could be you don't understand the paragraph. So you go back and, well, maybe I don't understand this. And you kind of look at these again. Maybe something's not right there. Maybe what you thought was the big idea really wasn't the big idea. Because sometimes it can be, you can say, make haste, oh, hurry. It's praying for God to hurry. It's like, well, yeah, that's part of it. But is that what the whole thing is about? And doing this check where you're checking your big idea against your paragraph summaries, when everything falls into place, then that you have the big idea. This is what the passage is about. The other thing that could be an issue, what if all this is in place and this section doesn't match? Now, Psalms, it's easier to tell this because the whole psalm is supposed to go together because it is a psalm. So each psalm is its own big idea. But what if you're in, the Gospel of John or something like that, or 1 Corinthians? It could be that this section should be a whole separate big idea. It should be a completely different, not only a new paragraph, but a new major portion. And it should have its own big idea. So if you take this out, maybe then everything else fits. So those are a couple of different things to be able to determine the big idea. But if you don't understand what the big idea is and you're teaching fifth graders, you're going to have, if you don't know what it is, there's no way they're going to know. So you have to know what the big idea is so that you can explain the purpose and the point of the passage. And that's the real goal of what we're trying to do with the analytical charts. Is we're trying to get where, yes, we understand the details, yes, I can see what's happening grammatically in the repetition, and all of that is going to point to the big idea and the main big idea. So we are out of time here, but you know enough now that you can continue working on your book study, and on Wednesday, it's going to be just working on your book study. So bring your computers and this sort of thing to class.